Animated Parashá with Micha, Animated 2.0. Welcome to another Animated Parashá with Micha Animated. This week's Parasha is Vayera, which means, and he appeared. You ask, and I'll try to answer. Let's get to the questions. Micha, is it better for you to visit the sick or to receive visitors? Before I answer this wonderful question, let me explain to you these two commandments. Mitzvah, the commandment of Bikur Cholim, is visiting the sick. If you have a friend who is sick, visit them. Send them a card. Call them. Our sages say that for each time you visit a sick person, you remove 1/60th of their illness. Can 60 visits cure all illness? I never thought about it. And the other commandment, Haknasat Orechim, is to welcome guests. When you have guests coming to your house, greet them at the door and make them feel welcome. When you say goodbye, accompany them for about 2 meters. Now, our student is asking, which is more important, welcoming guests or visiting the sick? If you can only do one of the two commandments. In our Parsha, it seems that welcoming guests takes precedence over visiting the sick. Why, you ask? Because Avraham Avinu, was on the third day of his Brit Milah, the day that hurts the most. You know who came to visit him? God. Hashem came to visit Avraham Avinu. He was sitting in his tent feeling sad. God intentionally made that day very hot so that nobody would disturb Avraham Avinu. Everyone was sitting in air conditioning and the streets were empty. But Avraham Avinu was sad because he had no visitors. You see, he loved receiving guests. So God, seeing how much Avraham Avinu wanted to receive guests, took 3 angels, disguised them as regular people. And Avraham Avinu said to God, "Wait here, God, because I am going to receive my guests." Yes, he said that to God. God was coming to visit the sick. And Avraham told God, "Wait here, God, because I'm coming to receive the guests." So, in response to your question, it appears that welcoming guests is considered more important than the commandment of visiting the sick. Now, let's talk more about these angels dressed as regular people who came to visit Avraham Avinu. First, director, show us some curiosities. Avraham Avinu's house was different from ours. It had 4 doors. Why, you ask? Because Avraham loved receiving guests so much that anyone could enter from any side. There was no need to go through the back or front door. There were entrances for everyone in all tastes. Do you want to know what Avraham did for his guests? He got up, prepared food for them, and even had his son prepare food for them. This teaches us that when you receive a guest, it's not enough to just send a servant or maid. You should get up and do it for your guests. Each angel came with a specific mission. The angel, Michael, came to deliver the good news that Avraham and Sarah would finally have a child, as they had hoped. The angel Gabriel came to overturn and destroy the city of Sodom, which I'll tell you about shortly. And the angel Raphael came to save Lot from his terrible city and to heal Avraham Avinu from the pain of his Brit Milah, his circumcision. Micha, tell me, how was the destruction of Sodom? Lot lived in Sodom, one of the most sinful cities on earth. Any person who fulfilled acts of kindness and charity was simply killed. If you gave money to the poor and got caught, it was considered a crime. One day, a girl with a kind heart gave a piece of bread to a poor person, and the people of Sodom poured a bucket of honey on her and threw her to the bees. That's how wicked Sodom was. Do you know who lived there? Lot, Avraham Avinu's nephew. The 2 angels were heading there to save him by the merit of his righteous uncle, Avraham Avinu. When the angels arrived, Lot received them. But the townspeople soon discovered that they were guests in Lot's house, which was forbidden. They banged on Lot's door, demanding that he send the guests away. Lot tried to hold the door, telling them, "Please don't touch my guests." But the knocking grew louder. God then performed a great miracle, making all the townspeople blind so they couldn't find the guests. Instead, they started hitting each other in the head. The angels then told Lot, "Let's leave this city." Who else is here? Lot said, "I have 2 married daughters." However, his 2 married daughters didn't believe what was about to happen, and only Lot, his wife, and his 2 unmarried daughters left the city. The angels warned them not to look back as the city was destroyed. Fire and stones rained from the sky, completely destroying the city. Lot's wife couldn't resist and looked back, becoming a pillar of salt. And why a pillar of salt? Because she didn't greet her guests with salt. God punished her
מידה כנגד מידה.
measure for measure, turning her into a pillar of salt. At the end of the Parsha, Avraham and Sarah's long-awaited dream was finally realized. When Avraham turned 100 and Sarah reached 90, their beloved son Yitzhak, meaning joy or laughter in Hebrew, was born. Sarah laughed with joy when she heard the news that she would have a baby. When Yitzhak was born, many women who couldn't have children were blessed with offspring. The story of Lot and his wife teaches us that we can bring joy to others with small things. It doesn't take much. Just some salt, sugar, or a little extra hospitality, like a pinch of ketchup. So make your guests feel good. Your guests should feel at home, part of your family. This is the commandment of Haknasat Orchim, welcoming guests.
More Micha, what was Abraham's greatest test?
Well, the most significant test for Avraham Avinu was the 10th, Akedat Yitzhak. God told Avraham to take his beloved son Isaac and bring him to Mount Moriah to offer him as a sacrifice. Can you imagine that? A father sacrificing his own son. It was a tough test, but Avraham Avinu didn't hesitate. He didn't argue. He simply took his son, who was also willing to be a sacrifice, and along with his secretary Eliezer and his son Yishmael, they climbed Mount Moriah. When they saw a cloud on the mountain, they understood it was God's signal to sacrifice Isaac. Avraham and Yitzhak ascended the mountain, and Yitzhak asked his father, "We have the wood and the knife, but where's the offering?" Avraham told him, "My son, God will provide the offering. If not, it will be you." And Isaac accepted. He lay down and Avraham tied him up. Just as Avraham raised the knife to carry out the sacrifice, the angel of God called out,
אברהם, אברהם.
In other words, don't do it. It's a test from God. Take the ram behind you and sacrifice it instead. So Yitzhak was spared and they sacrificed the ram. Until this day, on the Jewish New Year and on the Day of Atonement, we remember the story of Akedat Yitzhak, the sacrifice of Yitzhak, beseeching God for merits, and the merit of Avraham, who was able to sacrifice his own son in the name of God. Forgive us, grant us another year of life. This story teaches us about the importance of God's commandments and tests. So, to answer your questions, could you pass a test like this? Everyone receives tests according to their ability to endure them. We all have the strength to overcome our tests and challenges. God designs our tests according to our capacity to face them. You can pass your tests. They will make you a better person. These are the great teachings of Avraham Avinu. What do you think of these teachings? Let me know in the video's comments. Don't forget to subscribe and like our channel. Also, make sure to share the Parasha with your family and celebrate it at the Shabbat table. See ya! The Animated Parashá with Micha Animated 2.0.